Hello students, welcome back. In this video, we're going to add a mechanic expansion to Broshi. This is going to give our player a way to fight back against those pesky little blocker blocks. And this is going to come in the form of another special type of block. We'll call it a Broshi block. A Broshi block will be these green blocks that will destroy anything that is sandwiched between them. So if a green Broshi block lands and then we stack multiple blocks on top of it, if we cap it with another Broshi block, it will form essentially a Broshi sandwich with the two green blocks. And we will destroy everything within that stack of the green blocks. And we'll award extra bonus points for doing this. So let's head to the computer screen and let's build out this new mechanic expansion. So I have lesson 7, our mechanic expansion on Broshi blocks here open in vscode.dev. I'm going to minimize the browser and open my file directly so we can see the game. All right, so I've got lesson 7 open here. And in our current state, we have our soft drop multiplier, so I can increase the fall speed. We have all of our different colored blocks. We have our blocker blocks present, but I do not yet think we have any Broshi blocks. So once a blocker lands, we cannot get rid of it, which is a huge pain. So there is one of those pesky blockers. It's going to be there for the rest of the game. So what we need to do is we got to implement our Broshi block system to give Broshi a way to fight back. So let's head to the code and let's look at how we're going to do this. Mission number 1 says we need to set the Broshi spawn chance and our bonus multiplier constants. So we kind of got like a new system here, the Broshi block system. And so when we add a new system, we're going to go to our student edit zone and create little variables that we can use. These are going to act like knobs, dials that we can use to tune the system. And so right here, we see our Broshi constants for mission number 1. I have a spawn chance, which is currently set to 0. Well, I want more than a 0% chance to spawn a Broshi block. If you look, our blocker spawn was 15%, so 0.15. I'm going to do the exact same thing here. So we'll have 15% chance to get something bad and a 15% chance to get something good. That totals 30%, which leaves 70% for our regular colored blocks. I like that distribution. And then when we create a Broshi sandwich and we destroy a bunch of blocks, we said we want a score bonus. So think of this as like a multiplier. Right now, it is 1. Well, 1 times anything is just that thing. So there's going to be no increase. So I'm going to do triple the amount of points. We're going to have the Broshi bonus be 3. All right, and with that, let's go see what we got to work with in this new Broshi block system. In our color palette, it looks like I have a Broshi color, which is, equal to my player's color. So that sort of makes sense. So these blocks are going to be that same green that my player is. I like that dynamic. That's a good setup. And then if I scroll down just a little bit more, let's see if we have any new gameplay variables. And it looks like we don't, because our Broshi blocks are just going to be another take on the block data structure, that block object that we've already worked with. So let's now head to mission number 2. Mission 2 finds us in generate block data. All right, so let's see. Remember we worked in this in our last video. We created a variable called roll, which was a random number between 0.00 and 1.00. And based off of what that value is going to be, it would determine what type of block we made. So let's see what we're doing. We set and assume that the type of our block is going to be a color block, and then we randomly select its color from our array of colors, red, blue, yellow, or purple. But then we say, hey, if that random number that we rolled, that decimal number, if it was less than 0.15, change the type to blocker, change the color to our blocker color. We are going to do something similar with our Broshi generation. We're going to ask another question. We're going to say if roll is less than, I can't just put Broshi spawn chance, because Broshi spawn chance was 0.15. See, if it is less than 0.15, if it was like, I don't know, 0.7 or that's not less than 0.15. It was 0.07. Well, 0.07 is less than our blocker spawn chance. So we'd set our block to a blocker, but then it would also be less than our Broshi spawn chance, so we'd set it to our Broshi. Like, it's not going to work. We're always going to override one of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, we're going to create a range of values. I'll put it right here so we can see it. If, we'll say it's between 0.00 and 0.15, we're going to make it a blocker. All right, we'll make it a blocker. If it's between 0.15 and 0.30, we'll make it a Broshi. And if it's between 0.30 and 1.00, we'll keep it a color block. So that's going to be sort of our distribution. We got 15% chance here, 15% chance here, and 70% chance here. So the way I'm going to get this is not using the Broshi spawn chance, that's 0.15. I'm going to use the Broshi spawn chance plus our blocker spawn chance. We're going to add those two things together. 0.15 plus 0.15 gives me the 0.30 that I'm looking for. Perfect. So this should work out really, really nice. So if that question evaluates the true, what do we want to do? Well, we're going to take the type of our block, and we're not going to make it a color block. We're not going to make it a blocker block. We're going to make it a Broshi block. And we'll use that type to determine how we interact with this block coming up. And then let's set the color. We'll set the color equal to the Broshi color. All right, and just like that, we should have a new block appearing. So I'm going to refresh the game. Let's refresh the game, and I'm going to let it run for a little bit. Let's see. Maybe we can generate some Broshi. Ooh, look at that. There is a Broshi block. So that works pretty good. So what's happening right now? Let's see. Can anything happen with a Broshi block? Well, I can stack. Okay, so I can stack them. Can I make my Broshi sandwich? Let's see. I just need another Broshi block. Can we get one? Okay, so here it is. So ideally, when this Broshi block lands, we're going to get rid of everything that is in between it. Oh no! It did not happen. It did not work. So we got to fix that. We got to add in our logic to basically remove everything between our two Broshi blocks here, our Broshi sandwich. So let's move to mission number 3 and see if we can take a look at how we are going to do that. Well, mission 3 puts us in a function called check Broshi clear. All right, and it takes in some column. So we want to check a particular column if it needs to be cleared by a Broshi clear. So we define two variables, lower Broshi index and upper Broshi index, and we set them both equal to -1. All right, so our Broshi index of -1 means it doesn't have a place currently in our array. If you think about like the index of an array, so like if I have a bunch of blocks here, so let's just say it's a red block, then a blue block, then a purple block, then a Broshi block, right? These are all at specific indices, 0, 1, 2, and 3. If the index is -1, it means nothing. There is never going to be anything at index -1. So this is just a way for us to say we have not found a lower Broshi in this column. We have not found an upper Broshi in this column. If we look at my game, there is no lower Broshi in this column. There is no upper Broshi in this column. So that works out nicely. In this column, we have a lower Broshi. We have an upper Broshi. Now, if you look here, I have a lower Broshi, but I have no upper Broshi on top of it. So that would indicate that, hey, there's no sandwich yet to be made. So we just got to figure out where those indices are. And that's exactly what we're doing here in lesson number 3. So we loop through our given column's length, so all of the elements that are in our given column, and we ask a question. And so our question here is false. You know how I feel about that question. That question's no good. So we got to ask a question. Is this question going to be yes or no? Have the option to be true or false. And if it's true, we're going to check to see if the lower Broshi index is equal to -1, meaning you have not yet found a lower Broshi. Well, you just found one because we're starting with an index of 0, bloop, right down here, and then we're looping upwards. An index of 1, I just found a Broshi, and that is going to be the lowest Broshi block in my column. If that is the case, I want to set the lower Broshi index equal to I, so whatever value we are on in our iteration. All right, so how are we going to ask this question? Well, I have to first go to my big array that's holding every column in the game, and that is called columns. And I'm going to open that array up, and I'm going to select the specific column that we passed in. So like if you look, right? I might be looking at, say, this column. So I'm going to select column 0, 1, 2. So I'm going to select this particular column from my array. Now that I have that, that is a given array that holds a bunch of blocks. So I want to grab the current block that we are on. So I'm going to open up another set of square brackets, and the current block that I'm on is the variable I. And this whole thing represents a particular block. For example, it's going to be this block, then 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 this block. And what we want to do is check to see if this block's type is Broshi, or if this block's type is Broshi, or this block, or this block, or this block, or this. And then when we get here, we go, oh, that block's type is Broshi. So we're going to call dot type to look at the type property and see if it is equal, 3 equal signs for equality, to Broshi. If that is the case, and if we have not yet found a lower Broshi index, we're going to set the lower Broshi index equal to whatever I is. Mission 3 is done, but finding the first Broshi is only part of a Broshi sandwich. You got to find the second Broshi as well. So now we're going to look to find the second Broshi block in that same column. So if you look here, you might have found a Broshi. If you found a Broshi, that's great, but we're only going to set the lower Broshi index if it has not yet been found. If it has been found, we're going to skip this line of code and we're going to run this else statement. So if you look here, we found a lower Broshi index. So when I find this one, there's no need to check my lower Broshi index. It's already been found. So the else block is going to run and I will automatically set my upper Broshi index equal to that value of I. I don't have to check to see if it's equal to -1. I already know it's going to be. And then we break. So we get out of this function. We found our lower Broshi index. We found our upper Broshi index. We can simply break out of that loop. Not out of the function. We're breaking out of this loop. So don't check anything else because mission 5 is the sandwich rule. All right. It says stop the Broshi clear if a full sandwich was not found. Only continue when both Broshi blocks exist. Whew, okay, so we run all of this code here, and we want to see, did we find a lower Broshi block and an upper Broshi block? That means we have a sandwich. If we don't have a sandwich, we are going to return. We are just going to get out of this function. So what indicates if we don't have a sandwich? Well, lower Broshi index, tab for autocomplete, would equal -1. That means we're missing like the bottom piece of the bread for our Broshi sandwich. Or upper Broshi index, tab for autocomplete, is equal to -1. That would mean we're missing the top piece of our Broshi sandwich. If that is true, we should just return. We should just get out of this function because we are about to try to calculate how many blocks were inside of our sandwich and how many points we should get. But if the sandwich doesn't exist, let's just get out of this function. And that's exactly what the return statement is going to do for us. So now we can head to mission 6. Mission 6 says, let's count how many blocks are actually inside of the Broshi sandwich. And we're going to include both Broshi blocks in that clear size. So I think to help us here, I might draw a little picture because I think it's going to help in our understanding of how we're going to determine the number of blocks inside of a Broshi sandwich. So let's just remember, we've got this variable called, oh, I like using a blue pen. Let's use a blue pen. There we go. So we got this variable. It is an array called columns, which holds all of the columns in our game. So let's assume that maybe we have, let's just say I have 3 columns. I'm just going to make a small version. So we have 3 columns, 1, 2, and 3. And then we got a bunch of rows in here. All right. Not a big deal here. So our array of columns is going to have 3 different arrays in it. And I'm gonna fill this with some blocks. So maybe I got a red block in this first one. And maybe I've got then a yellow block over here. And I'll put a yellow block here. And then I'll put a purple block. And then I'll put a blue block. And then I'm going to do some Broshi blocks. So I'm going to put a Broshi block down here and a Broshi block here. And I'll make one more row so it's not at the top. There we go. All right, so what we're going to say is if these are our breakdowns, our columns array, which represents our whole board, our first column, column 0, column 1, column 2, is going to have the elements red, I'll call Broshi green, yellow, purple, blue, and green. Then our next column is just going to have the element yellow, and our next column is going to have nothing in it. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to pick one of these columns. So let's say we're targeting this column right here. So we pass that into our function. We're calling that col. Let's just make sure we understand that. You see, in check Broshi clear, we're checking to clear Broshi in a given column. So that column number I have, so let's assume it is column number 0 in our case. All right, and so now what we're going to do is we are going to figure out how many blocks we have in total. Well, let's look at how many blocks are in this column. We have this element at index 0, at index 1, at index 2, at index 3, at index 4, and at index 5. That's supposed to be a 3 there. Can I make that look clearer? There we go, at index 3, index 4, and index 5. And so we can figure out the lower Broshi index. So this is our lower Broshi index. This is our lower Broshi index. And this is our higher Broshi index, or upper Broshi index. And so that is going to be found here. One second. So our lower Broshi index is right here. That's going to be element 1 in that array. Our upper Broshi index is right here. That's going to be element 5 in that array. So the number of blocks cleared, we can say, okay, let's take blocks cleared and let's figure out how many are in between them. Well, we're going to do the upper Broshi index, minus the lower Broshi index. So 5 minus 1 gives me 4. But I didn't clear 4 blocks. I cleared 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want to count that endpoint, so we're going to make sure we add 1 to it. So we'll add 1 to give us our 5 total cleared blocks. So that's going to tell us our sandwich size. Our sandwich size is going to be the upper Broshi index minus the lower Broshi index plus 1. All right, so let's code that in here in mission number 6. We're going to create a variable. We're going to say const blocks cleared. All right, because in this function, once we define blocks cleared, we're not going to change it. We'll change it on the next function call, so we can use a const here. And I'll do upper Broshi index minus lower Broshi index. And then we want to add 1. So that is a measure of how many blocks we have cleared. All right, so let's see. Is this going to work? So now we actually have to clear the blocks. So it says, mission 7, clear the full Broshi sandwich from the columns. Remove all blocks between the 2 Broshi blocks. Okay, so let's go back to this picture, because I think this picture is probably going to help us here to understand what we want to do. So we got to target the right blocks. So we've got this array called columns, and that represents the whole board. Then we're going to pick a specific column out of that array, and that column is passed into this function right here with col. So let's just start by grabbing that. So I'm going to take the whole array, columns, open it up, and select the current column. All right, now that represents the array that I have right here. So that represents this array. From this array, I want to splice or remove something starting at right here, right? That's my lower Broshi index. So I'm going to call on that array dot splice, and I'm going to start removing at the lower Broshi index. And then, if you look here, that's our starting place, but then you have to specify how many things you want to get rid of. So if I just said 1, which is what we have done in the past to remove things. If I remove just one, I would only remove that green block. Everything else would stay. But instead, I want to start here and I want to remove, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements that are sandwiched between my two Broshi blocks. And that is my blocks cleared variable. So we are going to say, hey, let's splice lower Broshi index to blocks cleared. And I think with that, we can begin to test this system. Let's see if this system actually works. So let's see if we can get some Broshi blocks. Then we'll build a Broshi stack, a little Broshi sandwich. All right, let's see. Yellow, yellow. Okay, so there's a green, perfect. And so now I'm going to put some things in between it in hopes to get another green. All right, we're going to build a big old Broshi sandwich. The next green that I get is going to be my top bread of my sandwich. All right, there it is. So let's see. As this falls, when this hits, everything in here should clear. Let's see. And look at that. Everything cleared. That worked out awesome. Let's see if we can do it again. So now let's just make sure it's not the whole column that's going to disappear. So, okay, so now I'm creating a sandwich. That red one should remain because it's not part of the sandwich. Oh, perfect. This works really, really nice now. I should just be able to clear those two. Yep, because there's a sandwich with nothing between them. Not too bad there. All right, now I want to get some extra points for those Broshi clears. So mission number 8 is all about a bonus score. So it says award bonus score for the Broshi clear. Scale the reward using the Broshi bonus multiplier. Okay, so I'm going to take my score variable, score, and I'm going to add to it. Let's see. Well, I'm going to first start with my blocks cleared, right? So my blocks cleared. So if I cleared like 5 blocks, I'm going to take that 5 and multiply it by the Broshi bonus, which is 3. So 5 times 3 is 15. And then I'm going to multiply that by our score increase value. All right, so let's just let's do the math here. So let's say I cleared a Broshi sandwich of 5 blocks. So I start with 25, and I multiply by our Broshi bonus, which is 3. So that would give me 75 points. And then I'm going to multiply that by the 5 blocks that I cleared. So I would be getting 375 points. If I had done those 5 blocks independently, 5 times 25, I would only get 125 points. So I'm going to get a lot more points for clearing the Broshi sandwich. All right, let's test this whole system out. So let's see. Let's get some Broshi sandwiches. Ooh, perfect. I'm starting with a green. Let's see. So this is going to be good. I'm going to try to, okay. So right now I have 3 blocks. All right, and so I got 225. Let's just check this math here. I cleared score 25 times 3 for my Broshi bonus times the 3 blocks that I cleared is 225 points. That worked perfect. The only thing that I still would love to test is I want to make sure that this is going to get rid of a blocker block. That's the last thing that I want to test out in this system. So let's see if we can generate a blocker and put it in this sandwich that I have here. And we'll play it for a little bit. I haven't seen any blocker blocks yet, which is alarming to me in our game. I hope we didn't break that system by implementing our Broshi blocks. I don't think we would have, though. Let's see. Maybe I'll pause the video and come back when I have a block. Oh my goodness. Students, I just said I hope we didn't break the blocker system. We 100% broke the blocker system. And this is a great learning experience. I screwed up. I have to go back to mission number 2 in our generate block data. I fell victim to a foolish mistake. I even warned about this mistake, and yet I did it anyway. We ask a question. Let's say we generate a roll of our random number is 0.07. I think that was the example that I used. So we generate a roll of 0.07. Well, 0.07 is less than our blocker spawn chance of 0.15, so we make a blocker block. But then we ask another question, an independent question. Is our roll of 0.07 less than the blocker spawn chance and the Broshi spawn chance added together, which is 0.3? Well, yeah, 0.07 is less than 0.3. So even though we just set the type to blocker and the color to blocker color, we override it right here. oh, I am so silly and I'm embarrassed that I let this happen. These are two separate questions that are always both going to get asked. But if this one answered yes, we do not need to ask this question. And the way we set that up so that this second question only gets asked if the first one was not true is by not using if here, but else if. This will sort of tier these questions together. So that was a huge mistake on my part, and I apologize. But hopefully it was a good learning experience for us because we saw without that else if, no blockers spawned at all in our game. With that fix, let's now see if our blockers are going to come in properly. And let's see if we can build. Look at that. Now I have a blocker. So I'm going to build a Broshi sandwich with some blockers, and let's see if we can remove them as well. And that's the last thing I want to test in this system. All right, I don't want this stack to get too high. I might not be able to eat it in time if a green one shows up. All right, here it is. Let's see them all go away. Perfect. Blockers included. That was exactly what I wanted to see. So now our character, our little Broshi, has a way to fight back against those blockers by just simply creating Broshi stacks, eating them, and earning massive amounts of points. So I think our game is pretty much playable. Like, all of our gameplay mechanics are set. The last thing that we might want to do is add some visual polish, make our game look a little bit nicer and more engaging to our user. And that's exactly what we'll do in our next video. So I'll see you then.